I always thought my life had become everything I dreamed of. Andre and I had been living together for 2 years. He was my world, caring, attentive, always ready to support me. We made plans, dreamed of the future, and enjoyed simple moments, evenings together, walks, laughing over cups of coffee. Sometimes, I thought we were just perfect for each other. I never imagined that I would ever doubt it. But with each passing day, something started to change. At first, it was subtle, but soon it became clearer and clearer. Andre became distant. He hardly talked to me and avoided eye contact. There was no longer the lightness, the openness we once had in our home. I tried to talk to him, but he always found an excuse to brush me off: tired, work, something else. I tried to find an explanation. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe it was just a temporary problem. But I felt that something wasn't right. My intuition told me that this coldness between us wasn't random. He became less attentive, didn't show interest in my life, didn't listen to me. The familiar gestures, hugs, tender words, had vanished. He even started staying late at work, and when I asked him why, he would answer shortly, busy. Those words echoed in my head, and I couldn't shake the thought that he was hiding something from me. Of course, I didn't want to believe the worst. I tried to convince myself that I was just overthinking things. But my intuition wasn't wrong. Every day, it became harder to make excuses for his behavior. And when one day I noticed that there were a lot of messages from an unknown number on his phone, I felt something cold and heavy tighten in my stomach. I told myself it was just a coincidence. But when I saw that this number kept popping up, and the messages were becoming more frequent, I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, when he stayed late at work again, I decided to take action. I couldn't just sit idly by anymore. I opened his phone. Yes, I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but at that moment, I didn't care about my conscience. I had to know the truth. What I found there changed everything I thought I knew about our world. I'll take a short pause here and would love to hear from you in the comments about where you're listening to my stories from and whether something similar has happened in your life. Share your thoughts and experiences. If you're interested in more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch new videos. That evening, I remember it as if it were yesterday. I was sitting alone in our living room, trying to understand what was happening. My world was collapsing right before my eyes, and I couldn't stop it. In my hands, I held my phone, where more and more messages were appearing, as if each new glance only intensified the pain. I couldn't believe what I had seen, but the facts were right there. I felt like I was about to faint. I didn't know what to do or how to keep living with this truth. And at that moment, when I thought I couldn't hold on any longer, the door opened. It was my son, Artem. He had returned after a long absence to visit us. I was so grateful he came, but at the same time, something about his visit felt different. He looked worried. His face wasn't showing the usual smile that he always greeted me with. Instead, it was tense, with a hint of anxiety. I was happy he was home, but the moment I looked at him, I realized this wasn't just a family visit. He knew something. I tried to hide my emotions, smiling at him and trying to stay calm, but he immediately noticed something was wrong. His eyes studied me carefully, and in his gaze, I saw something more than just concern. It was like understanding, like he sensed something. "Mom, what's going on?" His voice was soft but persistent. I wanted to tell him everything was fine, but when I looked at him, something in his eyes made me open up. I told him everything, about my doubts, about what was happening between me and Andre, about what I had discovered. He stayed silent, listening, and I felt his gaze becoming more resolute. Then, without saying a word, he stood up and walked over to Andre's phone, which was lying on the table. I tried to stop him, but he looked at me, and I knew it was inevitable. He opened the phone, and I felt a chill run down my spine. With every word he spoke, I began to realize the situation was much more complicated than I thought. Artem, being a doctor, had a unique ability to analyze and assess not only physical but also emotional states. He was attentive, sensitive, and persistent, qualities that seemed to leave no room for lies. "Mom, it's not what you think," he said when he saw the texts on the phone. He started showing me messages that revealed more than just flirting. Something I couldn't have predicted. And in that moment, I realized, the truth turned out to be even more devastating than I expected. I tried to understand what was happening. Artem revealed not only what had been hidden from me but also what I had been too afraid to see. He became the person who, despite his kindness and care, didn't allow me to continue living in illusions. In his eyes, there was not just professionalism but also determination. He showed me facts that I couldn't have imagined. Everything I thought was true was now under question. At some point, I felt like I was losing control. But then I realized, without this truth, I couldn't move forward. Confronted with the facts, I started to understand that things were far more complicated than I thought. And my feelings began to waver. I didn't know how to react to what I had learned. That night, I realized that there are moments in life when you have to face the truth that haunts you, even if it destroys everything you've built. After learning the truth about my relationship with Andre, it felt like my world was falling apart. I was in shock, unable to gather myself, not knowing what to do. But despite the pain and disappointment, I understood that I had to move forward somehow. I was ready to try and rebuild my world, to sort out my feelings. But life had another unexpected twist in store for me. Artem, my son, a doctor by profession, remained by my side. At first, I thought his help would be limited to emotional support, but soon it became clear that his involvement was deeper and more decisive. He was far more involved in what was happening than I could have imagined. He started noticing details I hadn't seen, making conclusions I couldn't have expected. One evening, when he was over again, we began talking about the situation that had changed our family. I told him that I still couldn't shake the feeling that Andre was involved with the woman whose messages I had seen. Artem said he had a plan, but I couldn't even imagine what he meant. "Mom, are you ready to learn the whole truth?" His question stunned me. I didn't know how to answer. Did I know what to expect? I was ready to face any facts, but at the same time, something inside me was telling me that some things were better left in the past. But despite my doubts, I agreed. Artem started taking action. He suggested doing a little investigation. In his profession, working with people and analyzing situations was part of the job, but he was approaching it in his own way, not as a doctor, but as someone who was ready to help me understand my life. He enlisted a few of his colleagues and professionals to find out what Andre was hiding. And then, after a few days, Artem brought me documents and photographs that shook me to the core. The evidence was far more serious than I could have imagined. Everything I had believed to be true was now in question. I looked at the photos, the documents, and 1,000 thoughts were swirling in my head. Everything I had built was crumbling before my eyes. The words that once sounded like promises now became a cold reality. My son turned out to be the one who opened my eyes. His involvement in my life was not just support, but the deciding factor that forced me to see everything in a completely different light. I felt my feelings wavering and how everything I had believed in became fragile and uncertain. I had to make a choice, but I didn't know what would be the right one. Every new discovery made me doubt and experience more. I was at a crossroads, and every new event led me to more complicated decisions. I realized that sometimes the truth is hard to accept, and it can destroy everything you knew about people and about yourself. But deep down, I knew I had to deal with it. I couldn't leave everything as it was before. I'm really curious to hear what you think about this story. Have you had similar experiences in your life? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments. Your opinions are incredibly important to me, and I truly appreciate each one of you. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video so you don't miss out on new thrilling stories. Have a great day.